DJ Leroy.
Night Watchman, how you doing, buddy?
We're back.
Yes, we are. Happy New Year to you, buddy.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Thank you. And so, Night Watchman, know that I am sending you peace and blessings for 2025 because I know 2024, losing, of course, Mama Ponce, yo, you know I love them, man.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, well, Night Watchman, I've often heard that if there's one therapeutic thing out there, it's art.
Absolutely. It's the repository for our culture.
Absolutely. So you know what? We got a couple of virgins for Soul Lounge Prime Time. Why don't I bring them out?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, first off is an artist who I have not met, but he was actually, funny enough, referred to me in my other life, and that, of course, is being with Harlem CDC through Senator Clarke, and that could only be Wayne Alexander. Yes. What's it? Happy New Year, my brother.
Happy New Year to you, and thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this amazing broadcast.
Thank you. As a matter, Night Watchman, we may have to retain him as a hype man. What do you think? Absolutely. And of course, another one is a dude I actually met some years ago. I have visited, of course, his space. Which is right next to, of course, the Curtis Jacobs Gallery, and this could only be the Long Gallery, Louis Long. Yes.
Good morning.
All right. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, man. Good. So, man, this Night Watchman, I'm excited already. You know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, sometimes we get criticized of being male dominated. You know that, right?
Not in a while, but yeah.
well, you're not saying not since my sister passed. You're not saying
that's exactly what I'm saying.
well, Night Watchman, returning guest, always a pleasure. And I don't even know if she's here or Detroit. She'll tell us. Misha McLeod, Omo Misha.
Hi, good morning.
How you doing, dear?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, are you in the village of Harlem or what?
Well, what I say when anyone asks me, am I here? I'm always here.
Good answer.
Wherever here may be, I'm always here.
You know she had to throw that curveball. She just had to throw it. Jeez, man.
That's a polite way of saying you don't need to know what moves I'm making.
None of your beeswax. No, I'm in Detroit. I am in Detroit, but I will be back in Harlem next week.
All right, beautiful. So you tell me that I owe you a lunch. Is that what you're saying?
A couple of lunches.
Wow. Once again, Night Watchman, let's go to the next one, please. Bring him out because this man has been just blowing up. He's been representing, of course, the Harlem Fine Arts Show at every, let's say, HAA meeting that I've attended. That can only be Uncle Richard Pelzer. Yes.
Congratulations on achieving uncle status.
I take it very serious, by the way. So thank you.
Absolutely. And you know what, Night Watchman, I did not know he was coming. Talk about bum rushing the stage.
Last but not least.
Yes.
By any means.
Yeah. Dion Clarke, get him out here. Yes.
Give him his props. Dion Clarke, creator of the Harlem Fine Arts Show.
And this is a three-peat for me because this
That's
is the
right.
third
We have
year
to
in
give
a row
you a jacket or
we
something.
represent as the Harlem Fine Arts Show. So thank you for inviting us, and thank you for bringing us into an illustrious crowd that's on the show today.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for joining, for sure. So you know what? Let's start because, like I said, this guy was referred to me from my state senator, Clarke. You're going to have to tell me about your journey, and that is you, Wayne. Please, do tell.
Well, it's been quite an exciting journey. I had pretty much been a snowbird in Fort Lauderdale for the past 12 years. So this is my first season actually back in Harlem. And I'm really, really very excited because 2024, I was part of the International Art Basel exhibition. And once I completed that show, it was like, you know what? It's time for me to get my feet back home into Harlem. And so this is really what has what I've been doing since I got back in June. When I got back in June, there were a couple of things that I wanted to get set up right away. The first thing was I wanted to really actually move back into my apartment in Hamilton Heights,
Okay.
as well as getting my studio gallery situated. And that was like a major, major, major thing. So once I got myself situated back home in Harlem, I set up studio. I tried to get a little bit of work done. A couple of things that I had planned on my burner. I started rebuilding my website, so it takes on a little bit more of an e-commerce perspective. In addition to that, I've been talking to a couple of restaurants and said, hey, why don't, why don't we invest and come together and create some kind of artists and restaurants program? So for Harlem Week in August, we launched our first restaurant, which is at Trufa Restaurant at
Oh, yes.
140th and Broadway.
Uh-huh.
And that's been really going well. And then in December, we changed out the first piece and brought in a new piece, which you see right behind me.
Very nice.
And of course, there was some reluctance because a lot of people said, oh, we've done this before. And I said, okay, but it hasn't been done by me. So that's sort of been my MO. In addition to that, I also opened up another restaurant called Cordial, which is also located at 140th and Broadway. And I have two pieces of art that are hanging there. So I've been really extremely busy getting myself situated and, sort of back in Harlem. And that's pretty much my journey.
Well, welcome, Wayne and Lewis. Because of somebody commented, 202 number, man. You got to tell the genesis. At HU, is that where you had developed this thing for art, or what? Tell me.
You know what I have to say, I did, and it wasn't in the way that you're thinking. I went to Howard, and I was an undergraduate in finance, and so that means I was a business.
Wow.
But it wasn't until I went back there as an administrator. I was the chief of staff to the 15th president of Howard, and he was a art collector and enjoyed art. And so anytime in the afternoon, kind of when you kind of get to that point where your lunch is kicked in and you're happy, he would always like to go take a walk. And he would like to go to either one of two places. He'd like to go to the Moreland Spingarn Research Center, which has a exhibition space, and that is the second largest depository only after the Schomburg Center. Papers, manuscripts, rare books, etc. And then also the Howard Art Gallery. And so if you ever been to, the upper quadrangle, otherwise known as the Yard at Howard, you bookended on one end with the Founders Library, which is the home for the Moreland Spingarn Center, and bookended by the other end by Locke Hall, where the Gallery of Art is. And that's where such legendaries as Lois Bailey Jones, David Driscoll, Alma Thomas, Elizabeth Catlett, James Porter, were all, and modern day Beeza Butler and Alice Paskeen and Eric January. These are all legends of the visual art space out of Howard.
Wow, beautiful. And you notice that one of the things you also mentioned, you come from the world of finance, and I do know that also our guy Curtis Jacobs also finance. Is this something that's also the left brain, right brain type of thing, man? What?
Absolutely. So I was finance undergrad. I had the good fortune of getting my MBA up in Boston, and after a career of doing everything from working on Wall Street to helping launch new products for CoverGirl to helping roll out FiOS and figuring out FiOS and how to deliver fiber to every apartment and condo and co-op in New York City, to launching the home automation business for ADT Home Security, where all the things you take for granted in terms of managing and controlling your home through your smart devices, I rolled that out for them. After doing all of that, I had an opportunity to purchase a property in Harlem. That property had a commercial space on the ground floor, just as with my neighbor, Mr. Jacobs. He also was a visionary and had led the space. He had a gallery in the ground floor of this building when I went to look at my building. And over time, it worked out that it made sense for me to have a gallery. I had a different intention there. My intention was to have a photography studio. I had always recognized the power of the James Van Der Zee legacy in Harlem. It turns out that one of his final studios was on our block. Well, excuse me. His final studio was over a block away, situated on the same.
Oh, that's right, on Lenox, absolutely.
On Lenox, exactly a block over. But I learned later when I was gifted an original Van Der Zee of my great uncle, who was in Harlem in the 40s, that the picture was taken 2 doors down from my gallery.
Wow, see, Night Watchman, you see, that's real Harlem stuff. Even though I know you always claiming that, but I know you, Night Watchman. I do know you. So, Richard, before he is able to light on me, Richard, do tell me, man, what's been going on, buddy?
Well, I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity, and I really do appreciate it. As you said, my name is Richard E. Pelzer II. I actually have a company called Harlem CLX, which is Create, Learn, and Experience. One of the things that I realized, Harlem is true and true all the way through. And so I'm originally from the Midwest, Cleveland, Ohio, and moved to Harlem. But I lived in Harlem longer than I lived anywhere else. But even though I've been here for almost 29 years, I'm still the new person. So, and treated as such. I always go to Miss Vi Higginson because she always teases me. I lived on the same block all my life, and I can count back 4 generations. So, you know, it goes back. I'm pretty serious, but I love the neighborhood. I love what I actually do. But the way that Harlem CLX started, I did an initiative in about 2013 or so. I decided, because I started off as a talent manager, moved to New York City, and decided that I wanted to do something different, and started looking at some of the small business owners that were around, and I realized that they needed some marketing and promotion. And you know, the idea was, hey, Richard, I'm just trying to keep the lights on. I'm just trying to make payroll. It's really difficult and hard for me to really, you know, work on the other part. And we decided that I wanted to be that second set of hands. And how can I start connecting people? So create, connect, and collaborate is my motto. And I got a chance to meet the legendary Dion Clarke. And he said, hey, I would love to see if there's something that we would be able to do at the Harlem Fine Arts Show. I've been working with the Harlem Fine Arts Show for the past 24 months and became the interim general manager.
Wow. And
the idea was, and my task is to reimagine what the Harlem Fine Arts Show could be for the next 15 years. We have some amazing talent, not only in Harlem, but in the city of New York, in the state of New York, in the region. And so the idea is, how can I actually start to collaborate in a wonderful space and to bring Harlem to the glass house. And I'm sure that Dion is going to be sharing some of that.
Yes, indeed.
But I'll leave it at that. But thank you very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And remember, Richard, we remember you with Art Stroll Harlem. Are you still involved with Art Stroll Harlem?
Well, Art Crawl Harlem, yes.
Art Crawl.
With Ulysses. So yes, I work with many different businesses. So I dip in and dip out. I try to play nice with as many people as I possibly can. And so yes, shout out to Ulysses and all the folks at Art
Crawl Harlem. Absolutely. And okay, yes, certainly not least is who also celebrated last year the Sweet 16. I guess as it gets older, it gets sweeter. Do tell us, Dion. Come on.
Well, we're loving the vibrations that we get from Harlem and from around the world. The Harlem Fine Arts Show is celebrating its 17th anniversary this year. And we bring cultural nutrition throughout the United States and throughout the world. We're fortunate enough to be able to garnish here and bring in some of the best artists from around the world to be able to come to Harlem, to be able to showcase their works and sell their works, and again, develop a camaraderie with the community itself. And after 16 years or 15 years, the Harlem Fine Arts Show developed diversity and inclusion, because we moved our show from, again, the historic Riverside Church, because we started at the Armory on 144th Street. From 144th Street, we went to Riverside for 14 years.
Wow.
And then when we just kind of expanded, we grew, and we, again, started to get the type of impact that you love to get in regards to 10,000, 14,000 people coming over a 3 and 4 day period of time. We felt that we needed to let the world know about this. And by letting the world know, we moved to the art capital of the world in terms of Midtown Manhattan. We're now on 48th Street, right across from the West Side Highway. We are bringing in those same large numbers, but Harlem is a sense of mind and a state of mind. Yes. And so what we have brought is we brought Harlem into Midtown Manhattan. We extend ourselves, we embrace all people that come, and it's just been a fantastic experience. We have artists from, again, some of the greats, the Jacob Lawrences, the Elizabeth Catletts, and again, we are bringing emerging artists or career artists like the Frank Frazier's and the other individuals that have really kind of gone down this path. And also we've given the opportunity for emerging artists. So we have all of these type of individuals as artists and galleries that all get together for a 3-day opportunity. And that's February 21st to the 23rd in the Glass House in Midtown. And please come be a part of us and look at hfas.org, because that gives you all of the information to give you that road to come to the Harlem Fine Arts Show again. And thank you, Curtis, for giving us this opportunity to talk about our show. Again, this is 3 times, so we're like, this is a 3-peat for us.
Nice. And so, Night Watchman, I guess, you know what, we will continue to invite him back to the barbecue. What do you think?
Absolutely. First of all, Dion, it's just tremendous what you've done over the last 17 years in terms of not only creating an artist community, but creating an ecosystem so that artists can live and profit and expand their reach. So, we tip our hat to you.
Yes, indeed. And so, Night Watchman, I would get on her because she would like ghost us for a while. And until I realized and whatnot that, she's doing something there in Detroit that may be of some significance. Misha, what the heck are you doing in Detroit?
So I do run a gallery here in Detroit, a family-owned gallery.
Are you in the gallery now?
I am. We're in between exhibitions right now, so it's looking a little disheveled. But yes, I am.
So tell me the birth of the gallery there in Detroit.
Well, this is a gallery that my aunt and uncle desired to open some years ago. It involved, it's in a house. It involved rehabbing the house. So it really was kind of built from the ground up. And I was supporting the project from New York. However, my uncle passed and I became more involved. So now I am splitting my time between Detroit and Harlem, running the gallery here. We've been very busy and I guess successful. And but I'm still firmly planted in Harlem and working with City College and other organizations in Harlem and in New York as well.
Gotcha. And well, one of the things, certainly we do know about certain cities, of course, New Orleans and others that go through a particular period of devastation. And then they come back. And we know that, of course, Detroit, freaking bankrupt. And then the lights weren't even coming on. So do tell, in terms of the new inhabitants of Detroit, do we see Black and brown folk, or is there another?
Well, Detroit is, as you know, has always been very Black, and it is still very, very Black, but we do have a lot of new residents. So the landscape is changing a little bit, which is also why we felt it was so important to do this right now, because we want to restake and claim our space in these communities that are changing so rapidly. So there's definitely a growth going on here, and kind of growing pains a little bit between the new and native residents.
Sounds a little bit like Harlem, but
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities. It really feels very similar in a lot of ways. And part of my work here, I feel, is kind of connecting the art communities between Detroit and Harlem, because both places are experiencing a lot of the same things.
Gotcha. Well, Wayne, do tell us what's the scene like there for artists in Florida? How was that? And now, what was the draw to get you back up north? Do tell.
Well, I guess the biggest draw was that I'm a Harlemite.
Mm.
You know, most of my working experience, my survival experience, I was in the cable television industry. I worked for Time Warner.
Ah.
I was pretty much a boss through cable TV. After I left those guys, I went on to sell telephone systems to businesses.
Wow.
You know, some of my clients were the Black Car Services, restaurants, Sylvia's, Apollo Theater. They had me running. So I felt really sort of very much out of place in a place like Fort Lauderdale, which is pretty much middle class, Caucasian. I didn't really find my seating, and even in situations with talking with people, I found that organizations were not receptive to me or my art. And I said, well, you know what? This is where I began. Years ago, I used to walk around to some of the galleries in Chelsea, and I would take my photographs of my paintings and say, hey, you know, I want to exhibit in your store. And they said, well, how large are these pieces? I said, well, they're wall size. He said, I'm sorry, but our galleries are too small. So I said, okay, I'll be back. So this is pretty much my whole experience coming back here to New York. And so that's the next move. And you know, since I've been back, I just kind of like say, all right, let me do my little thing with the artist restaurant storefront project, and hoping that I can start to get other artists involved in this venture. I think that, you know, this is a great place for people to come in and sit down, enjoy their food, see some great, decent art that's hanging on the wall, follow the artist. Really, it starts right here in Harlem. So this is my passion pretty much for now, until
Beautiful.
I get into the bigger galleries, which hopefully will be soon.
Well said. Well said. Lewis, once again, I hear this, you know, this technology there, because of course you mentioned files. I got you. You do know that you and Curtis are basically anomalies. A black man who own serious property in Harlem. That is a rarity. So I definitely have to kick off in terms of you with opening the gallery. What was the vision? Because I know it must have been like challenging to look at that. And the commercial space, did you always see it as a gallery?
No, not at all. As I mentioned before, when I first looked at the property, Curtis was actually in his property operating on a Saturday, I think it was. And
was it called Renaissance Fine Art?
RFA. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Paula. And so, I wasn't expecting to directly compete or not. I mean, yeah, I wasn't expecting to come in and say, hey, I'm going to open a gallery right next door. I actually had the intent of opening a photography. Well, I was looking at a couple things, but after I thought about it, my former ex-wife was in fashion, and she was very well connected, had ascended to the highest levels, and I always thought it might be a place for her to kind of play out some of her visions related to high and low fashion, vintage, etc. And that was the original thought, and she wasn't interested in that. And so, and then when I was here and I was on the ground at the time, I shared a life like Wayne. I was like, and Misha, I was commuting between South Florida and Harlem.
Wow.
And commuting between South Florida and Harlem, she was here, I was there, and on the weekends I would kind of just monitor and watch. And as much as, and this is just to be clear, as much as I had heard about, because I was new to Harlem at the time, that it had changed and the community was in upheaval and no one like us was walking around, all that kind of stuff. When I was on the ground, I was like, this is very much Black. It's very much and it's very much, I got to reorient when I was thinking about what would go here. And I thought that a photography studio that was a nod to the past, like the way people would have grand photos taken by James Vanderzee, that was the initial vision. The name of the space was the Soul Studio. And the Soul Studio, the SOL, not SOUL, was about light, because the key element of photography is light. And the thinking was that you would go in, you have setups just like you did at Sears and Olin Mills, and you could take a picture and walk away with the novelty and something that also might play out on social media, given we're in the social media age. Built out the space for all of that and designed everything for that. And before we opened, an artist, Harlem-based artist, came by and asked if they could have a show here. And because it was a clean white box, it was a space for their art. After seeing the art, he was a friend of a friend and the fiance of a childhood friend. And so I was like, have at it. Look, I got to catch my flight back to Florida. Here are the keys. At the end of it, just give me a piece of work. We can figure that out. And what was a 4-week stint lasted into like a 5-month stint. And that led to a few things happening. One, I got an amazing piece of art as a barter for the exchange. And then two, my aunt, that was the head of the cultural affairs for the city of Atlanta and also had a art gallery, she came to me and said, look, I want to do a show with artist Preston Sampson. Preston Sampson is an artist that I had collected from DC. His work was actually behind my desk at Howard. I was like, wow, you mean I can use my space to get Preston, whom I've never met, and get some art, which I already loved it. And so one show led to another, and that's how it became Long Gallery Harlem.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that story. And Richard, I saw you nodding up and down. What was resonating with you from Lewis's story, man?
I think it was a number of things. One, Harlem is Black. I don't care what anybody says. Harlem is a state of mind. The name Harlem resonates just like the brand Chanel. So people from around the world really do know it. I do think there's a lot of romanticizing when it comes to Harlem, because folks, tend to go to the Harlem Renaissance, but there's 100 years of history that is there that I think needs to also be celebrated. So I'm really into, preservation, but also thinking to the future of what this could possibly be, and creating places and spaces like that, I think is really key and important as a community, engagement person and engaging with people feet on the ground. There's so much talent. And there's so many amazing opportunities, and we really want to be able to give people that opportunity to say, yes, you could be a part. And so collaboration is a really big thing for me. And as much as, I support artists, I also am really looking at collectors and people that, are inspired by art, because, again, you see these things, you're just like, I have to be so smart to understand what's going on, but I like this, but I don't know why, or I have an affinity for. So that's why I always use the word appreciation, because you have, the art of appreciation, or appreciate theater, or, music. It doesn't have to be just one thing. So at the Harlem Fine Arts Show, I've been really sharing and talking to Dion and the whole staff on being a resource for the rest of the 362 days that we're not in one place. So us being able to share that, because folks are saying, hey, how can I start my collection? What does that really look like? Where do I actually do it? It's not every day people talking about how to collect art or purchase art or buy art, or what should I be looking at? And hopefully we would be, a great alternative to be able to do that. So I loved everything that's been said, and I think it's really key and important for us to be able to share that knowledge.
Nice. And certainly, Misha, what I saw you also agreeing and bobbing your head, being a teaching artist, being a curator, and being an artist because your Malcolm X in my office is quite nice. But do tell me what's been resonating with you and what they've said.
Well, Adam Clayton Powell is, I live on Adam Clayton Powell,
Yes,
down the street from Lewis's home and gallery. And Adam Clayton Powell, I am proud to say, I believe, remains the blackest street in Harlem.
Wow. Okay. Very
I
good.
mean, with
Very
all
good.
the changes that are happening around the community, it is the least gentrified, in my opinion. And I appreciate that. It can be a little rough, even on my block, but I appreciate it because it is a reminder of our resilience.
Yes, indeed. And you know what? You said it well, Misha. And you too, Richard. In terms of the romanticizing about Harlem, it's always been hard because we know Jim Crow, economic starvation of a community has its consequences. But now that it's let's say on the rebound, it's very, very different but challenging. So I do get sometimes offended when people talk about, let's say, second Renaissance.
Yeah.
The Renaissance was dominated by arts and culture. This is pure economics. Let's be clear. So, Dion, what say you, buddy?
Well, before I answer your question, I just love what you do in terms of your program because I see a number of storytellers. I see a number of storytellers that are able to really influence and impact our community. And that's what the Harlem Fine Arts Show is. In terms of all of our artists have great stories to tell. They have stories to tell about the culture. They have stories to tell about their everyday lives. And they have stories that are so important to, again, the world. So I salute what you do in terms of your radio show and your cable show. And it's just so important to all communities that we listen to these stories because they really kind of help us grow, help us become more impactful in the game of life, and really kind of make it a win-win type of scenario. In terms of economically, I think economics plays a great importance in regards to the art field and to my particular entity or the Harlem Fine Arts Show because we empower communities. We hire workers within the community, and even our move from Riverside Church to the Glass House, we bring our workers from Harlem. We hire individuals that come in from the catering perspective, from the work labor perspective, and we empower it. And that's what the Harlem Fine Art Show is basically built on. Economic empowerment, because we need to empower ourselves to ultimately be able to stand up by ourselves. So I think that's right on point. We have to look at the economics, we have to look at the culture, and we have to look at how we embrace ourselves, because those particular thoughts and images carry on in the game of life.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Dion. Night Watchman, what do you have for us?
Well, I want to ask the group their thoughts on, we're at the beginning of a new year, 2025. There's a lot of upheaval, both, physically, you see what's going on in Los Angeles, and politically. So what is the climate like for both the market for our Black art and for creation of Black art in 2025? So I throw that out to anybody who'd like to answer that question.
Who would like that one?
I think to start, we don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what this next presidency is going to look like. We don't know what is going to happen after January 20th. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. I do know that in terms of the creation of art, we're going to see what's happening politically, socially, reflected by artists, because that's what artists do.
Yeah,
That's part of our job, depending on what kind of artists we are, to to tell the stories of our time, and to reflect what's happening in the world, and hopefully to bring people to some kind of realization or even education. So we're going to see that in the art. So far, at least here in Detroit, one thing about Detroit I have to say is almost everyone here has a deep appreciation for art, and it's always been like that, despite what was going on, what was on fire, whether the lights were working or not. There's always been a very robust art collecting community and art creating community that have supported and fed and continue to feed each other. It's very competitive, but it is also very exciting.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll piggyback off of Misha too.
Absolutely.
I have to agree that I think that it's very, we're uncertain of what's actually going to happen, but I'm very hopeful that this is an amazing opportunity for us to be able to create our own path, especially in the world of art and culture. And culture, I don't care what anybody says, Black culture is big business. As you already can see, some of the other entities such as Broadway on all of the shows that are actually coming to Broadway over the next 24 months are huge. You can look at a number of our museums of exhibits that are there. So if you haven't been to the Whitney and you haven't seen Edges of Ailey, please go see it before it closes on February the 9th. Right after that, then we have Amy Sherrill that's actually coming on April the 9th, her show. And then all the things that are happening at the Metropolitan Museum. Those are not just, we just want to be able to show Black folks. They already know that this is another way that they would be able to expand their footprint. And I do think that this is a great opportunity for us to be able to make sure that we take a stance as well. So looking at it, I'm always looking at the future. I'm looking at all the amazing talent. I mean, we're looking at technology and art at this point in time. And this year's theme for the Harlem Fine Arts Show is the Art for Beauty, because art does heal. So I do think that we are in a healing situation at this point in time. And next year we're doing art for technology, and the year after that is going to be the art for innovation. So the goal for us is to be able to inspire the artists and the collectors and the folks that actually love art on how they would be able to participate. So I'm hopeful.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
And I want to chime in here. I mean,
absolutely.
The biggest development in 2025 in the visual art world in Harlem will be the reopening of the Studio Museum in Harlem.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
A part of my being is that I'm literally a block in Curtis Jacobs Gallery. We're a block from the Studio Museum in Harlem, and they have announced that they will open in the fall. You can bet that Harlem will become the center of the Black visual art world again when it opens with its opening exhibition. I believe the artist is Tom Lloyd. He was the artist that was actually presented when the Studio Museum was first founded in the 1960s. And so the building, you can't miss it, across from Africa Plaza, 125th, and Adam Clayton Powell.
Yep.
What you have it flanked by, which solidifies Harlem as not only it's always been kind of deemed as a cultural capital for Black America, but now it is the capital of the greatest state-of-the-art presentation spaces for Black makers. Yes. So you have the Studio Museum, which will reopen. Across the street, you have the Urban League, which opened its new headquarters with the Urban Civil Rights Museum planned. To the left, you will have the we probably already talked about the Apollo Theater and their expansion at the Victoria Theater. And then you go a block away at Fifth Avenue, you have the new Black Theater complex. So between these 1, 2, 3, 4 venues, you have the most concentrated positioning of world-class places designed for the presentation of Black creativity. That cannot be short shrift. And what I will say about this is, and what I am a passionate advocate for, is that from an economic development standpoint, that we fully participate and capitalize and exploit and take advantage of our proximal location, the cohesion and the collaboration that could ensue, and ensuring that we're inspiring the next generation of makers, and that they're makers who inspired from the standpoint of building wealth with their creations. There's too many times that we've thrown away the most basic of ideas from a cultural standpoint. Nike, McDonald's, Walmart, they go market this stuff, and now they say they're not in the DEI. Screw that. Let's take it back, and let's control it, and let's make sure that we are in the catbird seat of how people experience it.
Beautiful. Man, Lewis, yeah, coming, bringing some heat, bringing some fire for sure. And certainly, okay, we're looking at the playing field of the commercial corridor, which is the main commercial corridor for all of Harlem, is of course 125th Street. So there we have, of course, as you said, Lewis, you pointed it out, you have the Apollo Theater, you have the Victoria Theater, which is now the hotel, residential property, and commercial space managed and operated by the Apollo Theater Foundation. And then, of course, Lewis, as we said, the National Urban League. So we have the Empowerment Center. We have, of course, the Civil Rights Museum. And the most important project to my wife, Lewis, is what? Can you say Trader Joe's?
You know,
that is not a
famous plug, but I'll put one in there.
I know you like those chocolate pistachios, but that's not that's not a cultural.
You know, Lewis, go ahead. What say you, buddy? Talk.
No. I was just gonna say. I mean, I think we've been. You know, you have a new target there too. I mean,
that's right.
About the 116th, but you know, there's one there. So.
And just so you know, and Lewis says this is for you because you're on top of this stuff, so you know it. So there will be an RFP released this year for something that's been out there for a while, and that of course is marked 125. Okay,
really?
That's right. Yes.
Where is it in the drafting stages? I want to see the RFP. I want to influence it. I mean, we had some problems before. I went to those community board meetings when we were looking at those proposals that came in before, and it was problematic.
Okay, so Lewis, don't start anything, but I know you're thinking about SpaceWorks. Is that correct? Oh yeah, okay. I see it on your face. I see it on your face right there, and you're right. But let me see. So that's one RFP. Then the other RFP is coming out of East Harlem, and that of course is going to be the Harlem African Burial Ground site, 126th Street and 2nd Avenue.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Well, let me just say this first. SpaceWorks, if it's a communal kind of workspace, let's make it's something that is useful for Black creators. Not just the WeWork that's with the Black label on it, and we're trying to. Let's make it a place where young people can go and print out things in 3D printing. That they have a podcast space to explore and look at, how they do this, how they kind of learn and cut their teeth on creating a show like this. Let's make a studio space for people, makers. Like we talked about these beautiful edifices of the celebration of art that will attract people from around the world. But are there enough making spaces here for talent? And so will there be studio space in there? It's not, be careful about what is in that. And I was half joking when I said, I want to see it because I want to see what the mandate is, because what we need is a place for makers.
Gotcha. No, that well said. And you know what? Before we tackle that, Richard, talk about the experience in terms of, let's say, because it's in terms of the space. With Art Crawl Harlem, you guys had a residency right there on Governor's Island, man.
Yeah, on Governor's Island, and this was our 5th year with with Governor's Island. And again, it gives, we mentioned before that Harlem is a state of mind. The goal was for us to be able to, we love home, but we want to be able to travel as well. And I have to actually agree with Lewis. I mean, we have to be able to find spaces where we would be able to create. They're not always safe spaces. They're not always sacred. As much as people would say we're all welcome, I don't feel welcome. So again, I have to be able to figure out, you know, what that looks like and how can I truly be inspired. So working with numerous people on not just, you know, creating it, it has to be marketed, it has to be promoted. You know, a lot of folks, the only time you see them or we start to pitch to people is when I want something from them. Can't you just say happy birthday, nice to meet you, whatever? It can't be like every time that you see me, I'm selling you something. So engagement is really key and important in the way that we look at that at the Harlem Fine Arts Show. And even when I do Harlem CLX, is being a real good resource, like sharing the information, because sharing is caring, and making sure that people are involved and they when they are at the table, they get a chance to say something. It just always blows my mind when we say this is what young people want and nobody at the table is young. Like it just cracks me up.
Oh God, okay. Yes, indeed. I see that resonating. I see that resonating, Richard. Does that resonate also with you, Wayne? Do tell. Oh, you're on mute.
Totally very optimistic, and that's probably what was the impetus that really got me inspired to move back home to Harlem and really be a part of this amazing excitement. Despite of everything that could be going on in society, we set the tone right here in Harlem. We make the difference, and that's what it's been. That's what it has always been. I've experienced actually seeing the Studio Museum in 3 different places or 3 different facades when it first started way back in the 60s. So I really understand that this is the hype for us right now. The biggest thing that really gets my biggest concern is like, how do we converge into economics? How do we get people to come in and say, hey, listen, we want to spend money, we want to invest in what you do? And that's part of one of the things that I'm trying to do in terms of just being visibly out there as an artist, put art into the restaurants. So people, who's that artist? Where does he come from? You know, not only myself, but other artists as well. Get people to want to come in and purchase what we do. Not just say, oh, I like Harlem. No, we want you to spend money in Harlem.
Beautiful. And Wayne, on that note, okay, the narrative of the starving artist. All right. So I got my BA, I got my MS and whatnot. What would, but I like to paint. I like to draw. What would your advice be?
Well, it starts by getting out there, and that was one of the first things that one of the curators at Art Basel said to me. He says, you know, I like what you do. You really need to get yourself out there and visible so that people can see what you're doing. I've got artist friends that all they do is sit in their corners and paint and paint and paint. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? What are you waiting for? The next hurrah. You really have to get out there and push yourself, market yourself. That is the only way that it's going to happen. And that's really sort of been what I'm doing and what I'm all about. And again, thank you guys very much for inviting me here to this forum. This is just a great, exciting experience for me and a great welcoming back home to Harlem. Thank you very much.
Beautiful, beautiful. And of course,
can I answer your question?
Go ahead. You absolutely, Lewis. Go ahead, my man.
The one thing that I think, I mean, from where I sit, and I've had the luxury of being at the privilege, I would say, of being at the gallery at the Wallach, and being in my own space, and this not being kind of like my profession that I was trained for, but I learned it on the job. And the one thing that advice I always give artists is that, you know, many people can make pictures that are aesthetically beautiful. And so that's great, right? But that's the first step. But the next step is, what is it about? And being able to talk about it. But the reason and how you make it about something is it being intellectually curious about topics and things that resonate with you. So I'm not telling you that you choose a topic, but if you're concerned about water, think about Latoya Ruby Frazier, who had the big exhibition in Harlem at Gavin Brown, and it was all about water. There's a depth in a concept. You look at Bisa Butler; she's going deep into the scholarship of Gordon Parks. I mean, your work has to mean something based on something, and it's based on generally the best work. If you're going to get to like how and why it sells at Art Basel, it's marrying the aesthetic with also the narrative, and the narrative comes out of you when you're well read, and you've been curious, and you have taken in other art forms.
Yes, nice, perfectly said. And speaking of us traveling west, Misha, we certainly do know about of course, the Durst organization, okay, and we know about Anita Durst, Shashama. So tell me, what was your impression in terms of Janet's property, taking one of their undeveloped properties and making that a home for Shashama? Because I know Ademola had his stuff there in the studio. So tell me, what do you think about those particular spaces where you have a safe space for creatives, as Richard and Lewis have brought up?
Well, the closing of the Chishama Artist Workspace definitely has had a huge impact on Harlem. I know very few artists who are not struggling with having a place to create, and many of those artists came out of Chishama.
Wow.
Chishama, I have not been in touch with them recently.
Okay.
But as you know, they would take properties that were in flux, not
developed.
Yeah, not developed, and use those spaces to provide workspace for artists. I don't see as much of that happening in Harlem. And I know that's a huge concern. So going back to what Lewis was saying earlier about Mart 125, I too would love to see that space converted for the use of the creation of art. It is sorely needed. Sorely needed.
Absolutely. And you know what? Absolutely right. So when they were talking about Spaceworks, remember, Spaceworks is a organization out of Brooklyn,
right,
that had no connection at all to Harlem, much less know anything about Harlem. So as you say, Lewis, that's going to be the wrong approach. Richard, we know that's going to be the wrong approach. But so getting us, the community, involved early in the process to provide some feedback, that's going to be essential. Absolutely.
And I'd like to bring up for a minute the thought of us not only having to work with an Art Basel all the time, or be able to go to those entities that are not really focused on the multicultural population. Why don't we pull that up by Art Basel? Why don't we make our Art Basel the Harlem Fine Arts Show out of New York City in February, and bring all the multicultural artists and galleries to New York City, the art capital of the world, and really be able to showcase the works, sell the works, build the spaces for us to be able to create these particular works, and then showcase them in the month of February. We need to empower and build our own to be able to ultimately get the success that we need to get.
Well, this is for Dion, you and Richard. So let's say I want to become involved, let's say, with the Harlem Fine Arts Show. Do I need a full collection? How might it work?
I think that it's really important for artists to be able to contact us too, because there is a jury selection that we actually do. I always try to partner artists that are up and coming or emerging, because I do agree, this is a business, so you still have to be able to figure out and have your story together. And working with people like Art for Harlem and working with other residencies gets you prepared and ready. It's just like any other business. Everybody has a song or a record. You know, if you can't sell it, then it becomes something different. So I do think that there are stages before you even get to showcasing. But I'm looking, especially for the next 15 years of the Harlem Fine Arts Show, like the Jet magazine, we have something for everybody, all the way from the youngest person to the oldest person, to the most sophisticated, to the folks that, hey, I'm just really here to be able to explore and to engage. So again, when it comes to artists or even collectors, I just think that the idea is just to be, engaged and contact us, and we'll be able to support and help you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. Night Watchman, can you say lightning round or what?
Let's do it.
All right, y'all. This is where we ask you nice, simple questions, and you guys give us the lightning answers, and then we move on. So we'll start out with you, Wayne. What do you have in the works for 2025, and how can one reach out to you?
Well, one can reach out to me through my website, which is www.waynesquareart.com. And what I've got planned for 2025, like I said, I'm in the process of rebuilding my website so that it's more of an e-commerce flavor. One of the other things that I want to do in terms of marketing myself is participate in the Breast Cancer Association. Maybe it's giving one of my artworks and being able to auction it.
Nice,
I also want to do the same thing for World AIDS Day next year in December. So my calendar is really pretty full at this point. And that's all I really want to do is just get out there, market.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Lewis, in terms of, let's say, the gallery, I want to know the hours. I want to know, hey, I got some stuff. I think it would be an ideal location. How do I make that happen?
Yeah. Well, we'll first say we relaunched our newsletter this past September, and it was a way to begin engaging our audience and the Harlem public as we look at mounting public exhibitions in the fall of 2025. Go to our website, www.long.gallery. That's it, long.gallery. Very easy, nothing else needed. Or go to our Instagram at Long Gallery. You will see that we're a site, a platform for not just finding out what's happening at my space, but what's happening around Harlem and what's happening around in the Black cultural world. I also encourage everyone on this phone call that monthly we issue this, and if you have something that you have going on and you want us to list it, please send it to me. My email is lewis@long.gallery, and that's for anyone listening here. lewis@long.gallery is a good place for us to get those listings. We will start our window program up. We have work in the window now. We'll have more work changing that dynamically over the next few weeks, and then we'll have full hours and exhibitions in the fall. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And you know what? I have vacation plans to come to Detroit. What should I expect there?
Well, right now, I'm co-curator of an exhibition of the work of Sabrina Nelson. It's a James Baldwin exhibition for James Baldwin Centennial, Frontline Prophet James Baldwin. That's at the Wright Museum of African American History. That exhibition actually started in Harlem at Interchurch and has traveled the country, gone to Paris, and now it is concluding here in Detroit at the Wright Museum. So definitely you want to check that out. Also, coming up this year, earlier in the year, I curated an exhibition for Donovan Nelson at the United Nations. So we'll be looking to push that work forward for this year, as well as the work of Noreen Dresser. She's a Harlem artist as well. And in Harlem, well, in New York, we're also starting a residency at the Echo Bay Yacht Club. So you'll be hearing more about that. I'll be getting in touch with all of you about that.
Wow.
And, yeah, that's off of New Rochelle. And let me see what else. I have a couple of Detroit artists that I'm looking to bring to New York, photographer Elante Davis and Terrell England, who is a pyrography artist. And I'm also scheduling a solo exhibition of my own work in Harlem as well. So
wow, she returns. Misha's back. Well, Uncle Richard, do tell. I mean, because you got it all going on. So, and also, Uncle Richard, do you also do music in terms of marketing and promoting? Because you know I love house music. You know this already, right?
We do it all, and I love house music. So
okay, we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk. So go ahead.
So since Dion's on, I'm going to let him talk about the Harlem Fine Arts Show. I'm just going to share because I wear a number of different hats. If anybody wanted to contact me, they can contact me at richard@harlemclx.com. Our website is harlemclx.com. Please check us out. Create, connect, and collaborate is really key and important. On Friday, January the 31st, we're doing a collaboration with the Whitney Museum. It is for culture. It's a free Friday from 5 to 10. And I can send you guys all of the information as well.
Perfect.
So perfect. Really great.
Thank you, Richard. And of course, Dion, my man.
Well, I'm going to bring you right back to the Harlem Fine Arts Show because it's coming up in February. And we have tremendous art, tremendous cultural experience. But besides that, we build events in the show itself. And I'd like to just bring up, again, the Red Dot Special and the Pink Dot Special with the AKAs and a beneficiary fundraiser from yes. And then we have a special salute to African Americans in medicine on Saturday, and that's our unsung heroes. We salute the again the doctors of the region and bring it together and really kind of tell them thank you for all the great things you do in saving our lives on an ongoing basis. And last but not least, we have a salute to African American women in finance, and that's on the Sunday, the closing day, as well as a community day with the Urban League. So it's an opportunity for us to get cultural nutrition, and I keep on pushing that because we need it. We need to survive like that, and it'll just increase our mind, our body, and our souls in a very positive light.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, Night Watchman, it looks like everyone here will be invited back to the cookout. Is that correct?
Except for you, maybe. No, Curtis, you'll be invited. Yeah.
Thank you, Night Watchman. On that note, you should take us home. Take us home, buddy.
All right, you've been listening to Soul Lounge Prime Time on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. You can find us every Monday evening, 7 o'clock on the radio and 8 o'clock on your favorite streaming channels. Thank you for these cultural warriors. Thank you for the term cultural nutrition, Dion. And please come back and join us again Monday evening when there's going to be something else even more exciting next week.
How can they top this? Come on. Well, we're going to try.
That's the question we ask ourselves each week.
Each week. Y'all, all right. Thank you, everyone. This was great.
Thank you.
You guys.
All right.
All right. All right. Very nice. All right. Take care, y'all. And you, Night Watchman, tell them that they will be receiving the links, all that stuff.